Well, hello everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Levi Wolff, and I'm joined today here with,
I'm Derek Steckel.
and we're excited to talk to you today about Copilot. And first, before we do, nice to see you all here. I see some people are still trickling in. You'll join, you'll get some great tips. And while you do that, while we kind of introduce ourselves and set things up, you'll notice on the screen we have a QR code. We'd encourage you to follow that and check us out on LinkedIn. We post a lot of tips, a lot of webinars, a lot of content there. So it's definitely something that is informational and that you'll find value out of. So, okay, so why did we get together and spend an hour on this Thursday? It's all about Copilot, right? And so I guess, Derek, my first question is, I know I have Copilot. I've been told that. But I also get confused because Microsoft uses Copilot a lot and there's different branding. Like, what does it actually mean? How do I know what I have and what do I have if I have Copilot?
Yeah, that is a great common question. Let me go ahead and just share my screen. We can jump right into that. You'll see here, the first window that I have is what is just called the free version of Copilot.
Okay.
So this looks a little different from people that may be familiar with that M365 view. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, I'm on that free plan. Mm-hmm. I'm not logged in with my work credentials. I don't have something like that enterprise data protection that you may see when you have the full M365 license. So this is the fairly bare bones version of Copilot. Again, anyone can sign up for it with their personal email. You can add images and files from your hard drive from your laptop only. What we're going to be talking through a lot today is M365 Copilot. So this is a little bit of a different view than what you may see with that very free plan. Now, even within this view, though, there's two separate licenses. There's the basic license and then the premium license. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner here, I have M365 Copilot Premium. So what that really means and what that brings to the table is you'll see here in the top left-hand corner, it says Work IQ. What does Work IQ mean? That means that when I am messaging Copilot here, I'm putting in different prompts. It is grounded in my work content. So different emails, different meetings that I'm on, different documents that it can pull in that I have access to across my tenant, across the ecosystem. It can naturally pull those things in. If I want to specifically go to this plus icon here and denote, hey, I want to add specific people or files or emails that I got, I can do that. But Copilot by default with this premium license is going to be able to search across that content. Now, the difference between, I mentioned as a premium and a basic license, the difference between those two, or the primary difference, I should say, is the basic license is effectively with this Work IQ struck through in the top left-hand corner. So when you use that basic license, the content that you get back from Copilot and its response is going to be grounded in web-based content. So if you want to be able to do some searching about maybe a competitor analysis, you want to be able to just summarize different information that's on the internet, you can do that here with that basic license. You can also pull in different files and content that you have. So you'll see here, if I go to that plus icon and add work content, I can pull in different Word documents, PowerPoints, Excel sheets, OneNote, but it doesn't necessarily have that work grounding that Work IQ brings to the table. So that's a little bit of the differences between those three different areas of Copilot.
Okay, cool. So that makes sense. And good news, I can sign in. I can see I have the premium license. And we've got 66 people and counting here. I'm going to assume that if you join this today, based on the title, based on what you saw, you also have a premium license. So you can kind of follow along with us. So great. I got Copilot. I'm excited. People have been hyping it up. But I actually, Derek, I'll admit, like, where should I start? Mm-hmm. Because it's like, AI is amazing, but like, where would I start with this view here?
Yeah, when I train a lot of different people in this space, no matter what your background is, I tend to believe that most people face two of the same problems in their work life. And that is you're probably on too many meetings. And the second one is you probably get too many emails. And for someone like me, I might not have as much time to prep for all those meetings, to go into them prepared with what I might need to talk about or bring up with the different emails that I get in. What can I necessarily do to prioritize them? I have so many things coming in here. How do I know who to respond to? Can I use a tool to help draft a response for me to get that first pass going? Those are the two ways that I recommend folks start, is with those meetings and with those emails.
Okay, so actually that's good timing because last week I was out for a couple days and right now my inbox, I love inbox zero, but my inbox like is crazy. Can you show me a couple of things about that? Like how can I clean that up?
Yeah, sure. So I would go to Copilot right here. And again, I have that premium license. So Work IQ, top left-hand corner. What some people may not see, you'll see this is the new design. So if I turn this off here and go back to that old design, what it's going to do is you're going to have that work versus web in the top middle. So that's basically the same thing. It's just that Work IQ means that work is turned on. If I have that structure and I click on that, that's going to mean that web is turned on. So you don't necessarily want your content to be brought in there. Again, premium license has that option. Basic license does not. So going back to your question though, Levi, your inbox is a mess. You're trying to figure out how you can potentially prioritize different things. What I would do is I'd go to Copilot here and I would say to Copilot, take a look at, now you could say your entire inbox, maybe a specific folder. The way I want to do this today is I want to look and say, take a look at all the emails in my AI folder. From there, tell me what the top 3 emails are that I need to respond to. And now if I want to add any additional context, I could, I could potentially run this and I could really like the results that I'm given. But maybe Copilot doesn't necessarily know that I want things prioritized from a specific client, a specific manager. I have those things in my head where Copilot is only going to be as good as what I tell it to do here. The way I like to explain that concept is in terms of dials. You don't necessarily have to have a checkbox of a bunch of different things to add to your prompt. But when it's really good where you want to add a little more context, you want something to be in a bullet point format instead of a table format. You want to specify what actually is priority in your head to give Copilot some grounding.
Yeah.
That's where it's really good to add different context here.
Awesome.
So a couple of things I might say is anything that looks like it hasn't been responded to in at least 3 days would definitely be higher priority, just to give it some grounding there. And then at the end, just for demo purposes, I might say something like exclude any client information or financial information in your output. And what I can do is I can go ahead and submit that to Copilot, and it's going to be able to, run through that folder. Or if I didn't specify my AI folder, be able to say, okay, let me look through your entire inbox. What are those things that you want me to look at, to search for based on that criteria? I'll give you my top 3. I'll give you some rationale behind that too. And for me, that helps me say, okay, I just got back from a long vacation, not too happy about being in the office with all this work, but at least it gives me some clarity now where I can go ahead and say, okay, I know that out of the 50 emails, 100 emails that are in my inbox, I have some clarity here. And you'll see.
So are you doing this live right now?
Yes, I'll do this live.
So maybe if someone's watching, they could be doing something similar on their side, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And what about if you're going to show us what you get? And it's a great example. What if they're getting something different? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I would expect that everyone who tries this is going to get something a little different. You might even get a different format. You may see the exact words I have up here, minus maybe like the AI folder piece. You may say, okay, perfect. I'm going to try that exact thing. You may get something that's in a slightly different format. That would be expected because the way that AI tools generate content is not going to be slightly different each time based off of the prompt that you have there and based off the user too.
Okay.
So here I have top 3 emails that need your response, saying why it's number 1. Looks like I received this on June 23rd, so almost 3 weeks ago. Marked as action required, request completion of a required internal form within 1 week. And they did not find any later messages in that thread, including a completion or follow-up. Okay, that seems somewhat concerning. Maybe I want to get on that. couple others here. It looks like I need to have a proposal generated. So I could go ahead and work through that as well too. So these are just a few examples where it's not necessarily as specifics. I don't want that content to be fully there. But I'm saying don't include any relevant financial information or client information. But I at least have a nice picture here where I can go and say, okay, I'm now going to, maybe for this example, I say, yeah, I do need to do that. All I have to do is hover over this email and I can launch that in Outlook. I can find that directly through Copilot instead of having to say, okay, I know this is number one. I agree. Let me go into Outlook. Let me search my AI folder. I see it was received June 23rd. Have to scroll through, click on it. No, all I have to do is hover over this and I can click into that and it's going to launch that email. I can also, if I need a briefing of what was necessarily in that email, I'm a little fuzzy on that, I can have Copilot directly summarize that for me. I can also have Copilot draft a response for me. So if a first pass based off the work content that I've kind of bounced around with in this specific area, this specific domain, Copilot's right here to help me with that as well.
Okay. So that I'd say this is kind of interesting. But I also think you mentioned at the beginning, like meetings. And so I'm in a role where, I get double booked, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident, sometimes triple booked, sometimes I'm following, sometimes, it's all these meeting mess. And like, is there an area where Copilot could kind of sort through that and help me with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too. So I'm also someone that gets double booked a bunch and I need to figure out, how can I prioritize what I need to? I have a fairly good sense on it, but my calendar can be really overwhelming. I'm meeting a bunch of different areas. Maybe you want to think about it in terms of if you're optional or required on a meeting. If you're optional, whether you agree with it or not, you are deemed as someone that might not necessarily be as important to the conversation. So maybe that's a criteria that you want to include there. Maybe there are certain meetings with people at the company or internal meetings versus an external meeting with a client, where in your head, if you get an external meeting with a client, you say, I almost always want to prioritize that meeting. Copilot with those right tools, with that right context, can't help you there. But you can also say to Copilot, hey, give me your best idea based off of, no context that I'm giving you to see what it comes back with. It's always great to use Copilot as your thought partner, not your end all be all, but your Copilot. So to your question, Levi, I can go ahead and come to Copilot and I can say, take a look at my calendar for the rest of the day. And for times where I am double or triple booked, help me prioritize which meetings I should be joining. And I'll add the one criteria where typically if I am optional on a meeting, I won't join if I have other competing priorities.
So if I'm reading this right, when you're doing this prompt, you're not asking Copilot or your AI tool to make the decisions for you, but you're helping prioritize so that you can make the decision, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, exactly. I probably wouldn't take this as the end all be all. Copilot makes mistakes sometimes, but it helps me in a very busy day have a second opinion on, hey, I think that based off of some Teams messages that I was able to find, you kind of prep someone for this meeting. You came to the conclusion already. They can probably handle that. So, okay, perfect. I can jump to another meeting that I might be on.
Sure.
So while we're waiting for this, something that I did want to plug a little bit is for those of you that might have saw, I used a temporary chat. So this is in the top right-hand corner here. It's a somewhat newer feature that is denoted up there from Copilot from Microsoft. And what this is this isn't going to save content for me in this bottom left-hand corner in this chat section. So for those of you that may have seen this before, you can always go back to different chats that you have had with Copilot to pick up where you left off. So it has that context that you've been working with. This is based off your organization's retention policy. So some organizations have the period where this deletes shorter, others have it a lot longer. But here I can go back and I can say, oh, I was working on an Excel sheet. I was working on a presentation. I got sidetracked. I got pulled into a critical meeting. I can go down here and click into that prompt and just keep going there. What this temporary chat feature does is it's not going to save that down below. So maybe I don't want Copilot to necessarily remember that I was working on something. I don't want it to take that context and maybe apply it somewhere else. I can have that temporary chat going right here. So I won't have to come back to it. It won't keep different information that I've been talking through. So Copilot comes back and says, I found 13 meetings.
Yeah, it's busy. Hey, wow, that's great.
Several overlapping periods. So picked up this, just 2 holds for the webinar. Few others. It looks like Levi and I have a review today. Typically harder to replace in a larger project meeting. This is true also because I have someone else that runs this meeting. So I'm not necessarily needed as much. I don't really contribute to it.
So you don't need to cancel on me.
Exactly. Okay, guys, we can have that. Looks like I have 3 competing meetings in a 1-to-130 scenario. Priority order. It's saying our internal weekly huddle. Then we have a knowledge transfer, and then that meeting that I don't necessarily work through. Gives me the reasoning. Weekly huddle is organized by my manager. I should probably join that.
Sure.
1:30 to 2. We have a few others here. Double booked. Looks like Levi, we're gonna have to reschedule this prep session though. I do have a one-on-one with my boss later. So I do agree with Copilot that it takes precedence.
Yeah. Okay.
So then it gives me that recommended attendance plan at the end too, just so I have a cleaned up count.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you mentioned this before, but if I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't like the way it's showing me this, like, does that mean I've done something wrong as a prompt, or like how can I maybe get like, this works for you, but this doesn't work for me?
Yeah.
Like, am I just doing Copilot wrong?
I wouldn't say you're doing Copilot wrong. There's definitely a learning curve when it comes to it. Copilot isn't the same as Google. You wouldn't go to Google and say something like this. There's the art of prompt engineering, including different details that you want to, knowing how much detail you need to include. If you need to give it a persona, saying, hey, you are my legal assistant, you are my just work assistant for the day, denoting that.
Yeah.
Including different things about sources. Maybe you don't want Copilot to give you information from crowdsourced sources like a Wikipedia or a Reddit.
Yeah.
Those are all things that you can kind of tweak there, going back to that dials example.
Here.
But right here, let's say you look at this and you're like, I don't really like what it came back with here.
Yeah.
You could go back and forth with Copilot.
Okay.
It's always a conversation back and forth here. So what I can say is maybe Levi, that prep session, we really need that prep session today. Maybe we're preparing for a client demo that we're doing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I know that is actually more impactful. So what I can say to Copilot is actually meetings with Levi always take priority.
Appreciate it.
I need to remember that for next time and update this response. And again, just going back and forth here, giving Copilot that feedback. There's the thumbs up, thumbs down here, but I'm also telling Copilot that specifically so I can hopefully remember that about me in the future.
Okay.
So right here, because it is a temporary chat, it's not going to be able to remember that future conversation.
Yeah.
But at least right now, it's telling me, okay, this one, this is no change.
Yeah.
This one, Levi's on the weekly huddle. Perfect. So I'm going to see you there too.
Yep.
Let's going to have a lot of overlap.
That's tough.
And then now it's saying I have to reschedule my one-on-one with my manager.
Yeah.
So it gives me an updated conflict resolution, updated attendance plan, etc.
Okay, cool. So we're 15, 20 minutes in. We got 80 people on the webinar here. That's just interesting, but like, I'll be honest, in my role, Derek, I do a lot of PowerPoints, and I don't think Copilot can help me there, because I've heard, Copilot's not good in PowerPoint. I tried it like a year ago, kind of wasn't the best. And so like, if you could help me there, that would be amazing. Like, what about PowerPoint?
So let me level set with you first. And, we've been doing these for a long time now, these sort of demos for clients. And I remember saying last year to the groups that I would train, don't use it for PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to use it to create a mock agenda or just a draft of how you want to go about a given outline for a presentation, then absolutely use that. But do not try to make slides in PowerPoint.
Yeah, that was my
Very bad.
Yeah.
Microsoft has made a lot of noticeable improvements here where I use it a lot for the decks that I create.
Okay. I'm skeptical, but I'm excited.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and dive in.
Okay.
So there's 2 different options I want to showcase everyone with today. So the first one is in this top middle section when you go to PowerPoint. So you just launch PowerPoint, and right here, You have this plus icon.
Are we in what can our viewers see
Oh,
here?
1 second. Let me go ahead and share that. Good call. So here I am launching PowerPoint directly.
So now you're telling me that before we were in the browser, we were in Copilot, and now you said, "Hey, I'm just going to open up PowerPoint and I'm going to do it this way."
Yes.
Okay, exactly. All right, so that's where we are. We just double clicked on PowerPoint. It pops up, and I'll admit this page intimidates me because I'm like, I don't want to pick my presentation style. I don't want to take me to the finished product.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when I usually come here, I just say, hey, I want to go to this blank presentation.
Right.
I'm going to launch it.
Exactly.
But here, what I want to do is instead of doing a blank presentation and starting from scratch, this up top here is inherently Copilot.
Okay.
So yeah, it says, what would you like to create today? And I can just describe what I want to create.
Okay.
Well, I know that we had a meeting yesterday where we're talking through with the different project managers here how we want to work through status reports in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe based off of that plan that we came up with, I want to have some sort of 3-4 slide presentation to denote that, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. We have it as an SOP.
Yeah.
We just have those best practices documented so we can maybe present that to leadership.
Sure.
So here I can go ahead and say something along the lines of, look at the Teams chat yesterday related to our customer success SOP meeting and create a 4-slide presentation with very good visuals around our plan to figure out how we're doing status reports for projects in the future. And what I can do then is I can add any more content. I can use a plus icon and bring in maybe different files. Maybe I want it based off of a Word document, an Excel sheet, and bring those in here.
Sure.
But let's just say this is what I want to do.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and I will create this. And now what this is going to do is it launches that blank presentation, but on the right-hand side, I have Copilot working through this.
Okay.
To be clear, I would not expect this to run in 5 or 6 minutes. It's going to take a decent amount of time. So one of the great things about Copilot is I can go ahead and move away from this workflow, and it's still going to run in the background as long as I have this window open.
Okay.
So I'm not in the interest of the demo time. I'm going to navigate away from this, and I want to show something a little different.
Sure. And one of the things I noticed you did there, and I'm just curious, like, so you mentioned Work IQ. We're talking about Microsoft. Everything's in the same kind of ecosystem. Is that one of the benefits of Copilot? Like you just said, reference this chat, and that's all you did, and it found it. Like you can just do that.
Yeah.
Yes. You just reference whatever, and if it's inside of your Teams messages, your emails, like what can it all really find about you?
It can find as much as you have access to.
Okay.
One of the things that I like to showcase is Copilot is never a backdoor for you to get into someone else's files.
That's good.
Someone else's emails.
That's good.
I couldn't go to Copilot right now and say, I know Levi got this email that I really want to get my eyes on. I know he has access to this proposal, this document. Can you summarize that for me? Copilot's going to error out every time if you don't have access to that document. That you know, it's never a factor away.
Oh, good peace of mind with that. Yeah.
So while this is loading, what I want to do here is share my whole screen. So I think for our viewers, we're getting a little cut off here. You'll see on this right-hand side, this is where it went to when I went to that screen, that top middle part of the PowerPoint. And you'll see that there's a query that I gave Copilot. And before it's going ahead, it's saying here, it wants to confirm a couple of things.
Sure.
So I'd like to pull the relevant Teams chat. Want me to research that first. So yes, I want you to pull that chat.
Yeah.
Just so I know that it's grounded in what I want it to. I can also say, Skip, I'll rely on you. Build from general status reporting best practices. I want you to pull in that chat.
Yeah.
Second option here, who's the primary audience for this 4-slide deck? I want it to be for leadership or management. Just make sure we discussed this as a customer success group, but I want leadership to have that buy-in too.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and select that. What's the deck emphasize the most? I am just going to pick the plan and next steps. I'll confirm that. we have those 3 bullet points here. So while this is running, what I want to now go to is another deck. So this is an existing deck that I used for a user group meeting a handful of months ago. And let's say that I want to add a slide here. So I'm kind of going through this. I have the deck that I like, but I come across this slide here. And I really like it, but I also want to do something similar for maybe software engineers. So I have, where great PMs differentiate. I really like the format, but I want to do this for a second role maybe. That's what the idea that I at least have in my head that I want to add here.
Sure.
So what I can do is I can go to Copilot in the bottom right-hand corner here at the Copilot option. Some of our users may see it in the top right-hand corner. I'll go ahead and click that. You'll see there's a couple options here. There's chat only and allow editing. You're going to see this consistently in other things that we're going to demo today. Chat only is only going to respond in a side window here. So it's not going to do anything in your deck. Maybe you have a really long deck and you want to understand, where did we pull, what slide is this data on, or where in your opinion do we best hit the mark on this idea? You could have Copilot return that for you.
Sure.
The other option, though, is going to be the edit mode. So let me go back to Copilot here.
So it's that difference of, are you using it as a thought partner or are you using it as creating something?
Yes, right. Yeah, okay. Exactly. So what I could do once the allow editing option comes up is I could go to Copilot and I could say, hey, it'll know that I'm on this slide. This is where great PMs differentiate. And I can say to Copilot, hey, I want you to create a slide similar to this, but around software engineers. And maybe I want to pull it from best practices, reputable sources. I want to ground it in that information. So I could go ahead and say that to Copilot here, and I could submit that. Again, it might take a little while, but what it will return, and I have this for you all here, is this slide, where great software engineers differentiate.
Sure.
So based off of what I gave to Copilot before this demo, I put that in the chat there, and it took about a handful of minutes, 4 or 5. But what it was able to do is it was able to look at the slide, understand the font, the background, the type of information, and then go out to the web and research different things about where great software engineers differentiate. And it first does that, it fills out in that information, understands it, and then figures out how can I put this effectively on the slide for Derek that he wants to see. This took 5 to 10 minutes, so something that I did leave the screen for to come back to. But I was very happy with this. It did the research for me. It kept it exactly in the same exact format that I want. So I was very happy and proud of this.
Yeah, so I told you at the start I was cautiously optimistic. And I like what I've seen, but I do have a question, and maybe you'll get to this. But branding is very important to me. And so when I create a deck, I don't want it in someone else's colors. I want it in Concurrency brand. Does that factor into this at all?
You can do that. That's an issue that I run into as well too, where I maybe will generate a deck that isn't in my company branding. And it can be a pain to have to go in there and import that slide deck, get the font right, and copy and paste everything in. Yep. Copilot has gotten really good at that too. So if I wanted to, I could, with this deck, I could go to Copilot in that allow editing mode, and I could say to Copilot that I want you to, based off of our branding, and I can attach the specific place. We have a SharePoint where that branding is.
Sure.
I could say to Copilot, update this deck to be in our official Concurrency branding. You can find that deck here. And then I could go to this plus icon. I could find it where it is on the SharePoint site, add it right here. Again, this is something that's going to take 5 to 10 minutes. Yep. It's going to be something that's very quick, but it has worked for me in the past where this will now update to exactly be in that Concurrency branding standard.
Cool. We're about halfway through. It's 11 o'clock Central. We're here in Milwaukee. I saw a couple things in the chat. Someone was asking about consumption, and that's a great question. Just to be super clear, everything that we have shown you so far and we're going to show you today does not generate additional consumption because it's part of that Copilot license. We specifically catered all these use cases to show you what's capable, included with, if that can give a little bit of confidence, you don't have to worry about Hey, Derek's doing these really powerful 10-minute long, PowerPoint prompts. What is that doing? It's not creating additional consumption. That's included there. Second thing is, it's about halfway through, a little bit of pulse check. You might be seeing a survey come through. And I'd also just say there's 82 of you online here, and the chat's been very quiet. So don't be shy. Let us know. We want to know what you're seeing. If you're doing this at home, hopefully you've got two screens, you're following along. Like what are you getting stuck at? What doesn't make sense? So just wanted to take that little small break and mention that. But is there more you want to show me on PowerPoint here, or should I ask another question? But I've got more questions.
Yeah, let's. I'm happy to take some more questions.
Okay. So I'm intrigued now because PowerPoint was a big thing and I was stuck on that. And the other thing in my role, I'm in a sales role, I'm very Excel heavy. So I'm always doing like pulling these reports in Excel, doing this analysis, trends of data, and like I have to Google like what's the lookup for this? How do I do a lookup? And I've got some stuff down to like, could you do what we're looking at here in Excel?
Yeah, let's go ahead and hop into Excel directly. So this sheet that I have, I just pulled from data.gov, so no sensitive information here. It's all about EVs in Washington State. This is data current as of about a month or so ago. So I have all this data. It's in the right columns, but I have so many rows that I don't really want to have to write maybe different formulas or ask or figure out how to write a report here or how to understand a certain metric. What I can do is I can utilize Copilot for this. Similar to PowerPoint, there are going to be three options that I have within the Excel sheet. There is chat only. So again, it's going to return just content in this sheet for me in this side panel. There's going to be allow editing, which is going to be able to maybe write formulas for me, create visualizations for me.
Sure.
And then the third one is plan. This one is fairly new. What plan is instead of going out, taking my query and then directly editing, it's going to say, hey, this is how I understand what you want to do. To confirm, does this make sense? Do you want to modify or change anything? We're going to go through all of these right now. So let's start with chat only, the most basic one. Let's say that I am curious, how I see Tesla a lot here.
Yeah.
Tesla is probably
I've heard of that.
common EVs, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's figure out how many are currently on the streets in Washington State. How many are in use? So I could say in this chat only section, how many Teslas are currently on the streets in Washington? In Copilot, I would imagine it'll take a little while here, maybe like 10 to 15 seconds. But what it's going to be able to do is run through that column G there, that make, and every time that Tesla is written there, it's going to be able to count that for me. And it says there are 118,575 Teslas listed in Washington.
Yeah.
It's all 287,000. So was that about 35% or so? It's a pretty large amount.
I like that it shows the columns too. So if you're one of those skeptics out there, you can see exactly where it's taken.
Exactly. So I have that chat functionality. Let's go to allow editing now.
Yeah.
So I'll switch gears a little bit. And let's say I'm looking at this sheet. Maybe I want to do something a little complex. I'm looking at it and I say, okay, we have this column K is the electric range. I see a lot of different numbers there. Maybe I'm doing some analysis. I want to know which ones in that column are at 100 or greater for an electric range.
Sure.
So I'm going to go ahead to the allow editing section, and I'll say to Copilot for the electric range column, for each number, or for each row, I should say, that the value is greater than, let's say 100, add a new column on the right and write the word electrified. There. Also make this column have green font. We'll go ahead and submit that here.
Okay.
So while this is loading, what I'm expecting Copilot to do for me is, again, it's going to go to column K. It's going to figure out that electric range where that value is greater than 100. And then in column Q, let's say this is the one that is open right now. I would expect it to create that new column for me, and write that word electrified in green for each row there. And one of the cool things that you'll see once this is done is that goes fairly quickly.
Yeah.
You'll see here, if I click into the cell, it has that formula written for me. So it's not like it was just Python code solely in the background.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know what that formula is.
Yeah.
I know what it is. I can potentially modify it. So if I want it to be a different word than electrified, if I want to add a little more logic, I could do that manually if you want. You can either do it within Copilot or manually. But at the end here, you'll see it gives me that result. And I have the option now. I can click done. So this is highlighted. I could confirm that. But let's say this isn't what I wanted it to do. Maybe Copilot messed up. Whether it's because what I put in the chat to Copilot was effective, or maybe Copilot just didn't do what I asked for. Regardless, though, if I click that undo button, what it is going to do is it's going to remove that for me.
Interesting.
Remove that work.
Yeah.
Let's do the last option.
Okay, I like that one. That was pretty cool.
So
I haven't seen that before.
You'll see in the allow editing one, Levi, it did it on my behalf.
Yeah.
I told it what I wanted to do, but it necessarily didn't confirm it with me.
Yeah.
Maybe I have this pie in the sky idea that I don't necessarily know how to write. I'm concerned I'm going to mess up my Excel document.
Right.
Even though I can go back and undo.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to have a little bit of a back and forth conversation with Copilot.
Sure.
How could I potentially do that here? So I'm on the plan section, and let me go ahead now and say, I want to create a bar chart that showcases which Tesla models are the most populated on the streets of Washington. But that's not all. Maybe I also want to be able to say, I only care about Teslas that, looking at this data, maybe I want to specify, well, I only care about Teslas Renton or Seattle, maybe two of the more populated areas. We'll see what Copilot will come back to me with. So again, if I wanted to just have Copilot try this automatically without going back and forth with me, I would just click on the edit mode and it would do this for me. Maybe it gets it right. Maybe it's a little too far-fetched, too out there where it's not going to be able to do that. But here I can work with Copilot. So Copilot comes back to me and says, okay, it's going to confirm the data scope, filter to Tesla vehicles in Renton or Seattle, count filter vehicles by Tesla model, create a chart sheet with the summary table, build a sorted bar chart by model count, format and verify the chart values. Maybe I don't like this and I wanted to add a different step. Maybe I'm like, oh, I actually want to include Nissan Leafs or the different BMW models. I could also say that to Copilot here, and it's going to be able to put that into the plan for me before it actually does that. But let's say I'm happy with this. I'll click that proceed button.
Yeah. And I'll just take a pause while you're doing that, clean up a couple things in the chat. Someone asked about, you were showing off some capabilities in PowerPoint, pulling from Teams or whatever. Does it have to be something that's recorded? If it's a meeting, the answer is yes, right? It would have to be transcribed or recorded. And another question was about, versions of Excel and whatever. And this, we're showing you everything that's included with that Copilot Premium license, which gives you that Copilot button inside of the Office application. So inside of Excel, inside of PowerPoint, etc. And I think what some of those questions remind me of is, we talked a little bit about Copilot has access to things you have access to. Keep in mind, if you just have it saved on your desktop and it's not in OneDrive and it's not in the cloud, Copilot's not touching that. So start thinking about if meetings are recorded, if you don't have transcripts, if you don't have things that are saved in areas that Copilot can look at, that might be impacting some of your search results as you have in here.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see here that Copilot now, based off of the instructions that we kind of worked through here, it now created a new sheet and it's working on the fly here. So it has
yes. Wow.
And then this has this graph here as well based off of that data. So it's able to create all that information for me in about a minute or two. So this is a very powerful feature. Again, if I want to be able to go back and forth with Copilot. This may be something that you want to verify. Maybe you haven't heard of what is the Roadster. Is this actually something that is from Tesla?
Right.
You want to do a little bit of research there. If it is something that you don't want included, delete that row and you can get that updated data there. You can work with Copilot or just do it directly here. I see a comment in the chat that I want to address.
Yeah.
Brian's asking, why are you using the auto selector? Why not change the model manually? It's a good question. When I'm working through this on my own, I may specify that I want to.
What is model selection?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that a little bit. So, some people don't necessarily know this, but as it currently exists, Copilot runs on a lot of those OpenAI and or Anthropic models.
I've heard of that.
The way I like to describe it is think about a root beer barrel or a butterscotch candy. That candy inside the wrapper, that's going to be the model that you see here. So I can specify, hey, I want you to use GPT-5.6 from OpenAI. I want you to use Claude Opus 4.7 from Anthropic. I can specify that here. The wrapper on top of that candy, that root beer barrel, that butterscotch in my example here, that's a lot of what Copilot currently brings to the table. It's natively integrated into the various apps that you're seeing here. It has that work IQ. It's you can personalize the tool. You have those data protections, those security protections, so you're not getting into other people's files, other people's information. So here, I'm using auto just for demo purposes, but as you get more and more comfortable with it, you could specify and say, as you're working through Excel, for example, maybe you're someone that GPT 5.6 is something that you have found that works the best in Excel. That's awesome, and I would encourage you to specify that there. But for folks that are maybe just getting started with it, I would say work through auto, have Copilot natively pick what it thinks the best model is for this. And then once you get a little more advanced, you can start specifying doing the same task twice, doing one with an Anthropic model, one with ChatGPT's model, and compare the output. Say, oh, this one finished a lot quicker, but this one actually liked the output a little bit more. There's always those trade-offs that you'll see.
Yeah, I think that's right. If someone's seeing this and, auto is all you do, that's fine. Let it handle it there. If you want to pick the model selection, you can. Now, remember, it's all still inside of Copilot. And so I think there's a comment that's maybe going into the weeds a little bit about underlying model selection at an organizational level. I would say at a user level, if your organization has enabled those models, there's no harm in doing that. So, I would just say maybe table that little bit there. Okay, cool. So we ran through a lot with Excel. I'm glad to see the questions come in. We got 15 more minutes. There is a question about prompts. I think let's hold that for the end a little bit. We'll circle back on that if we can. Did you want to show me anything else in Excel? That one impressed me. I'll admit. Good. So, I was skeptical on PowerPoint. You showed me some cool things. Excel's pretty cool. What about Word? So, part of my day as well, we put statements of work in Word. I do a lot of stuff in Word. I'm assuming there's some carryover there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to an example document that I have here. So within Word, I have this 5-6 page document, very text heavy. It looks like there's a lot of good information in here, but you'll see at the top, this was created as an executive update. I would imagine if I give this to maybe an executive at the company, they might say, I don't really want to read through this. Give me the TLDR. Yeah, what I want to understand here, what I need to understand. Copilot, it does a great job at modifying the content in documents for you based off of the query that you give it. So again, bottom right-hand corner, Copilot, similar features to before. There's going to be that chat only, and there's going to be that allow editing. Once this goes ahead and loads, what I want to be able to do is I have a lot of text in these sections. How can I potentially organize it? Well, maybe the first thing that I want to do is I want to, again, give that executive summary at the top. Okay, here's all the information if you want to go into the weeds, but if you only have time to read a paragraph or two, this is for you. So allow editing at the first section of the document should be added as an executive summary based on all the information below it. Keep it to be 250 words or less, let's say. I can go ahead and do that. And instead of having to go through this document here and again say, okay, I really like this paragraph, couple sentences here, what Copilot's able to do really quickly is to read over my document there. And based off of that query that I gave it, that prompt, it read over the information, understand what it thinks is the most impactful or what an executive would truly care about the most, and updates that section on the fly for me. Again, similar to what you saw in the past about in Excel about undoing versus done.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, the same option here.
Yeah.
It highlights exactly what it changed for you. You can go and confirm that, or you can undo it.
Sure.
If there's multiple edits that happened within the document, you can go ahead and navigate with those arrows here.
Cool.
So here for this one, I'm going to go ahead and click done. Now, maybe I want to do something a little different. And for allow editing, I could maybe control F and find different words I want to replace, or maybe I want to make certain things bold, capitalize certain things that might have been missed by me. But here, let's say I want to use Copilot to say, look over this document and anything that is called out as like a steering committee or some leadership committee, highlight that in bold. So I can say that to Copilot here. Look over the document, and for verbiage like steering committee or anything with a leadership group, bold that text. And again, instead of having to comb through this document, go through it little by little, there's a steering committee, there's an executive committee, I don't necessarily have to do that. I can look over this to make sure it did exactly what I wanted it to, but Copilot's able to take that first pass for me. So I can do this on the fly. You'll see here on the right-hand side, it's still going through the document and scanning what it needs to, but already I have this steering committee that has been highlighted here. It looks like executive sponsor group, chief operating officer, CFO, steering committee. Those are all highlighted now, and they're in that different color based off of Copilot. So I can notice and say, okay, these are the areas that Copilot made updates for me. There's one of 7 edits. I can go ahead, navigate down to each of these and say, yep, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. So I'll go and click submit there, and we're in a good spot.
Great. Okay. So I guess maybe could we let people in behind the scenes a little bit about this? So we said, hey, we're being tasked to come up with an agenda to hit 80 people, and we don't know where they are, right? So we're guessing a little bit. We're taking some examples, some tips from trainings we've done. But what would that look like if we weren't? So you've done a lot of this for companies. Like, how does that look like? Do we do the same thing? Do we just say, here's 10 random ideas, run this thing? Or how do we actually do a Copilot session like this for an organization?
Yeah, the key is making it as personal to you where your company's at, meeting you where you are. What we'll do beforehand to start is we'll do a couple stakeholder interviews, but we'll maybe interview the power users or just the average person that you think is pretty typical in that department in terms of their Copilot usage, understand where they're at, what their pain points are, what they have potentially tried in the past, where they could utilize Copilot from our perspective. And then that hour-long training, that half-day training that we do, that's going to be fully catered to meet you where you all are at. Different, if you're a HR professional and you utilize it for onboarding different resources or just new hire training, we're going to work with you to say, hey, these are ones that we have seen that are best practices in the industry. Whether you're as far along as doing agents or you're just you're at a 101 level where you just need to understand, what is the art of the possible here? We meet you where you are.
And you mentioned something about like by role or by department. Like, so I would assume there's some value then in saying, similar roles are going to do similar things, and we can get into more detail on, what a salesperson would do, what a project manager would do, what a finance person would do. And that kind of impacts what we're going to show off, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just scratched the surface with a handful of these use cases. We have done it for financial professionals, legal professionals, HR, sales. The list goes on and on, IT.
Sure.
There's so many ways that folks can get value out of a tool like this, and we love showing the art of the possible.
And some of the questions I'm seeing too in the chat, if I could summarize the theme, is like, well, what about if you could do it this way? And what about this way? And so I'd say, would it be fair to say a lot of times the answer is yes?
Yeah.
Right?
When we do different office hours sessions after the event, or maybe we have certain time with groups that we train where we're dedicating an hour right after that session to have some hands-on work. If someone comes up to me and says, hey, is this possible? My default answer is typically, let's try it. Even though it might not fully make sense, you might only be able to get half of the way there or 2/3 of the way there. I will never tell you that Copilot can do everything for you right off the bat. But what I will say is you'll be surprised at how many things a tool like Copilot can do well for you. It's always tough to figure out in your head, okay, I've created Excel formulas, I've written Excel formulas, I know Excel really well. Or same with PowerPoint. I can create a deck. I've created a deck for 10, 20, 30 years. But even if you have those different efficiencies, going to Copilot as a default and figuring out, hey, does this workflow make sense to utilize Copilot for? It's always great to do that, to try certain things. You're going to figure out, yeah, Copilot does do this really well. Copilot does it okay. I need to give it a lot more context, have a little more back and forth. You're always going to find those things that Copilot might not do well. But what I always recommend is try it first and see how far it could potentially get you. You'll be surprised.
I'm going to keep asking you questions to the end. So we're going to go to the full stop here. I did see the survey there. That helps us too, because again, we want to know, what did you like out of this? What hit the mark? What was mind blowing? What was very basic? But back to kind of a question and something you hit on. So we're showing you things in Word and Excel and PowerPoint, but you started the day by showing us things in the browser. So maybe go back to that, like accessing Copilot in general. And then could I have done a lot of this stuff just in the browser here? And like, maybe did you gain something by switching out of that? Like, just walk me through why you did that.
Yeah, the reason I like using it in the browser the most is because of the flexibility that it offers. Sure, I've seen a lot of people that will utilize Copilot in the standalone app. Some people like it in Teams on that sidebar there.
Yeah.
One of the best things about Copilot is that it's everywhere, and it's also one of the worst things about Copilot, right? Because especially if you're a new user, you don't necessarily know where should you be gravitating towards. And before I tell you why I use it in the browser, I do want to say that I always recommend using it where it makes the most sense for you and where you are going to be able to default to it.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is habit. I give the example of on my iPhone, I would always go to Safari and just Google something because, that's what I have done ever since I got my first smartphone. But because you're used to clicking that specific spot, clicking that app and utilizing it, you don't necessarily gravitate as quickly towards that new tool. So being able to have that tool like Claude or like Copilot where I would click the Safari app and go to Google, that habit really changes. So to figure out what makes sense for you all, but the reason that I use it in the browser is because if I have something running here within Copilot and it's taking a little while to run, all I have to do if I want to utilize Copilot for something else is come up to the browser here and click duplicate tab.
Yeah.
And what this is going to do is I now have multiple Copilot windows where while this is loading, maybe I want to do something else. Going back to the gentleman in the chat who had mentioned about the auto section here.
Yeah.
Maybe you're one of those more advanced users and you want to say, okay, I want to try the exact same thing, one with GPT 5.6 and then another one with Opus. And I'm going to say the same exact thing in each of these and I want to see how they compare to one another. This is a great, easy way to do it because you're in the browser, because you're duplicating those tabs.
Yeah. And I'd say that's the best way to learn it, right? It's just test those things.
Absolutely.
You mentioned having 5, 6, many chats going at the same time, which is cool. Copilot.com. If you're in any browser, go to Copilot.com. Make sure you click sign in. It's going to take you to this exact experience. And Derek already pointed out, bottom left is where it's showing you that license. I think there was still some questions in the chat of what you could do. We focused everything on having that license assigned to you at work, but there's other things you could do. So you sign in just like this, right?
Yeah, you'll see here, I just went to Copilot on the web and it says, which Copilot experience are you looking for? This personal one is that one where I can have my iCloud or my Gmail logged in there. It's not going to have those enterprise.
Don't put your work stuff there.
Do not put the work stuff here. But where it says work, a secure and compliant Copilot integrated with your enterprise account. Once you launch that, whether you have the premium or the basic license in the bottom left-hand corner, what I'm about to say still applies to both. And that is in the top right-hand corner, you should see a green shield with a check mark in it. If I hover over that, it says enterprise data protection applies to this chat. So what that means is you're not necessarily training the overarching ChatGPT or Anthropic model. The content that you are utilizing the tool like Copilot for, those files that you're putting in, that information that might be a little sensitive, that's staying within your tenant. That's not having any data leakage.
Yeah. And I see more questions still about, basic versus premium, and we might have this or we might not have this. Again, just to confirm, when you're in this paid premium license, you're not going to be hitting any consumption limits or anything like that for everything we've shown. Now, maybe there are some things with the basic license, which, has a different cost. And of course, there's creative workarounds for that. So, we could probably go for another hour talking around some workarounds. You can try to combat that by doing enablement, by doing training. And I mean, really, I would say we could have, this content could have been what? The whole day.
Yeah.
I mean, we
can easily talk about this for hours.
And to close things out a little bit here, well, first I'll ask you this. You showed me the model selection. So like my friends tell me that Copilot isn't good. I should switch to Claude. Like, is there merit to that? Or like, what could I do Claude with this? Like,
yeah, so Opus brings in that exact underlying model that, Anthropic uses for Opus too. If you have a paid license through Claude, you might have access to a Fable or Mythos, maybe a little earlier than Copilot. I always like to say, if you are someone that you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, your company has Outlook, you have Teams, you create Word documents, Excel sheets. In my opinion, it's a no-brainer to use Copilot in some way, shape, or form, just because of how it's able to naturally connect across that Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah, and I challenge someone to compare the experience, and I think you're going to find it to be pretty similar. So wrapping up here, we have less than a minute left. I would say what can help us the most is filling out that survey, especially if you have these questions or you want to keep talking. I think Derek and I are both, passionate about this, and we love talking Copilot. We love doing things in Copilot, but also this is something that Concurrency does, and it can be as simple as, hey, we got to answer these questions. We're stuck on this thing, to as complex as we need to bring someone in to talk to our executives, to train our CEO, to train these departments, to do some workflows. We can talk about all of that. So I'd really make the encouragement to fill out the survey and just connect with us, right? We'd love to talk more.
Yeah, always happy to chat.
And we'll finish it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.